Hey everybody, my name is Amina Brown and I am one of your co-hosts for Creative Mornings Atlanta. Our theme this month is nature. And I have to tell you, on a usual basis, I enjoy nature best from inside, through a window where I can look out at nature while I stay inside and experience the AC. But for the love of our Creative Mornings Atlanta community, I have ventured outside to show you a couple of places that are hidden gems where you can experience some time in nature while social distancing and still get to have a really great experience of some cool hidden gems in the city.
Hey, my name is Kyle Brooks, Kyle Black Cat Tips Brooks, and I'm out here at Arabia Mountain. It's part of a National Heritage Area not far from Atlanta, way out far east in DeKalb County. It's the first time I've left home in a while. 61 days. 61 days that I'm oddly proud of. So I'm out here by myself, walking around, listening to birds, looking at rocks. I think it's a good thing. I paint pictures for a living. Folk art. Folky art. Oh, by the way, can you help me find a dog? I'm trying to find a dog.
Well, howdy. I did my intro video in the parking lot, but I did it vertically instead of horizontally, and it was really great. A dog chased me and everything, but I'm gonna do it again the right way for Malik and the Creative Mornings team. My name is William Massey. I am an alumni of Creative Mornings. I spoke all the way back in 2016. Fun fact about me, I make sculptures out of trash and rubble. Another fun fact is that I got to marry one of the chief organizers of Creative Mornings Atlanta, Molly Perot, now Molly Massey. Whoop, whoop. Shout out and love to my new wife, Molly. I'm here to show you the East Palisades Trail. It's on the Chattahoochee River inside the perimeter of Atlanta. It's beautiful. It's only like 12 or 15 minutes away from downtown, and it's got incredible trails and all sorts of stuff, and some beautiful folks on it too. I'm giving a tour.
Oh, yay!
Do you love this trail? Do you come here often?
Awesome. Well, this is actually my first time here.
It's my second time.
Amazing.
Yeah?
Awesome.
It is so good.
It's amazing.
Glad to see you guys.
Bye.
Hi, bye. So I'm gonna show you around all the good stuff, high and low, rivers and mountains, and I hope you enjoy. Bye.
So the first one that we're going to experience is the South River Trail in Gresham Park. As you can see, it's really beautiful out here. It's almost got like a canopy of trees in a way, wonderful bridgeways here to walk through. You can walk through a neighborhood to get here, or you can park your car at Gresham Park Rec Center and then take the trail through this way. You have people jogging. Some people like to walk their dogs here, but it is a wonderful place to feel like you're getting away from the city, but you're still in the city. So shout out to the South River Trail in Gresham Park.
Originally, this whole area was very industrial. It was a mining area. They took all this stone and granite away to all over the country. And they had these railroad tracks running all over. And somehow they'd bring a railroad car in here, or some sort of cart, and load the stone on it. And then it went back to the main road down there, where there was a spur that went up to Lithonia and then back to Atlanta or down to Savannah or wherever they were taking their stone. Pretty neat. Old railroad track.
Right off the bat, you have to make a critical decision. Once you start, after you park in a designated spot, you can go left along the riverfront that way, or you can go right up the mountain and through the forest that way. I always like to go through the forest and up the mountains first and get that grueling hike in, and then on the way back the river cools you off and it's a lowlands and less strenuous. But up here is a beautiful viewing point, and all the way over here is the most magical part of the whole forest, but I won't give away the secrets. It's got roots.
Feels like my life is ready to blow. Me and my love, we're taking it slow. I hope she knows that I love her alone.
They got rocks.
I just don't know where I belong. Now I'm too busy, led me astray. 200 things I took the wrong way, but I saw her love gauge running low. I tried to feel, but it overflowed. Feels like
They seem to have good trail maintenance.
me and my love, we're taking it slow. I hope she knows that I love her alone. I just don't know where the hell I belong.
On a William Massey original hike, there are a few musts. At some point, you gotta run as fast as you can. Hey, puppy! I don't know you, but we're having fun.
Hey everybody, my name is Amina Brown and I am one of your co-hosts for Creative Mornings Atlanta. Our theme this month is nature. And I have to tell you, on a usual basis, I enjoy nature best from inside, through a window where I can look out at nature while I stay inside and experience the AC. But for the love of our Creative Mornings Atlanta community, I have ventured outside to show you a couple of places that are hidden gems where you can experience some time in nature while social distancing and still get to have a really great experience of some cool hidden gems in the city.
Hey, my name is Kyle Brooks, Kyle Black Cat Tips Brooks. And I'm out here at Arabia Mountain. It's part of a National Heritage Area not far from Atlanta, way out far east in DeKalb County. It's the first time I've left home in a while. 61 days. 61 days that I'm oddly proud of. So I'm out here by myself, walking around, listening to birds, looking at rocks. I think it's a good thing. I paint pictures for a living. Folk art. Folky art. Oh, by the way, can you help me find a dog? I'm trying to find a dog.
Well, howdy. I did my intro video in the parking lot, but I did it vertically instead of horizontally, and it was really great. A dog chased me and everything, but I'm gonna do it again the right way for Malik and the Creative Mornings team. My name is William Massey. I am an alumni of Creative Mornings. I spoke all the way back in 2016. Fun fact about me, I make sculptures out of trash and rubble. Another fun fact is that I got to marry one of the chief organizers of Creative Mornings Atlanta, Molly Perot, now Molly Massey. Whoop, whoop. Shout out and love to my new wife, Molly. I'm here to show you the East Palisades Trail. It's on the Chattahoochee River inside the perimeter of Atlanta. It's beautiful. It's only like 12 or 15 minutes away from downtown. And it's got incredible trails and all sorts of stuff, and some beautiful folks on it too. I'm giving a tour.
Oh, yay.
Do you love this trail? Do you come here often?
Awesome. Well, this is actually my first time here.
It's my second
It's
time.
amazing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it is so good.
It's amazing.
Glad to see you guys.
Bye.
Hi, bye. So I'm gonna show you around all the good stuff, high and low, rivers and mountains, and I hope you enjoy. Bye.
So the first one that we're going to experience is the South River Trail in Gresham Park. As you can see, it's really beautiful out here. It's almost got like a canopy of trees in a way, wonderful bridgeways here to walk through. You can walk through a neighborhood to get here, or you can park your car at Gresham Park Rec Center and then take the trail through this way. You have people jogging, some people like to walk their dogs here, but it is a wonderful place to feel like you're getting away from the city, but you're still in the city. So shout out to the South River Trail in Gresham Park.
Originally, this whole area was very industrial. It was a mining area. They took all this stone and granite away to all over the country. And they had these railroad tracks running all over. And somehow they'd bring a railroad car in here, or some sort of cart, and load the stone on it. And then it went back to the main road down there, where there was a spur that went up to Lithonia and then back to Atlanta or down to Savannah or wherever they were taking their stone. Pretty neat. Old railroad track.
Right off the bat, you have to make a critical decision. Once you start, after you park in a designated spot, you can go left along the riverfront that way, or you can go right up the mountain and through the forest that way. I always like to go through the forest and up the mountains first and get that grueling hike in, and then on the way back the river cools you off and it's a lowlands and less strenuous. But up here is a beautiful viewing point, and all the way over here is the most magical part of the whole forest, but I won't give away the secrets. It's got roots.
Feels like my life is ready to blow. Me and my love, we're taking it slow. I hope she knows that I love her alone.
They got rocks.
I just don't know where I belong. Now I'm too busy, led me astray. 200 things I took the wrong way, but I saw her love gauge running low. I tried to feel, but it overflowed. Feels like my
They seem to have good trail maintenance.
me and my love, we're taking it slow. I hope she knows that I love her alone. I just don't know where the hell I belong.
On a William Massey original hike, there are a few musts. At some point, you gotta run as fast as you can.
Most of this area was a quarry at one time. Millions of years of all these rocks, and then they came in about 100 years and really changed it. I prefer the parts that hadn't been touched, but these are an interesting place too. These rocks are. A bit tricky to walk on. This whole area was a quarry at one time. Well, they mined it all these years, and it just stayed one way, and then they came in and took lots of the rock away and really changed it in spots. I like the spots that are still kind of the same. The top of this hump of rock here has never been touched. It's pretty neat. Sometimes you find things out here that people have made, mainly stacks of rocks and things with sticks. One time I made a bear face out of some rocks. It might still be there. Sometimes you find trash, and that's always discouraging. But I'll show you some neat trash. Hold on just a minute. People used to dump stuff around here. I think some people still would. There's an old trash from 50s, 60s, 70s. Here's a car seat y'all could use. There's all kind of things in here. Mattresses, toilets, toys, somebody's old notes. A shoe.
A few other musts. You must have water. Matchstick branded water. You must have a muffin from Molly. If you don't have snacks, you're not gonna have a good hike. So bring multiple snacks. If you get moody like me, don't ruin a good hike by not bringing snacks. You also want to have a backpack and make sure you have a safe place for your keys if you drive. You don't want to get stuck in the woods. Other than that, you want to make sure that your footwear is comfortable, that it breathes if it needs to breathe, and that it's waterproof if it needs to be waterproof. Last but not least, this is really important. Really important. You must turn your phone on airplane mode. You must. You must. I just wanted to share my tripod tripod for that last shot. There it is. I'm pretty sure it's the tripod because it's got 1, 2, 3 legs. You have got to marvel at least one beautiful plant. Here towards the back end of the trail, we have some ruins, which I know nothing about, and there's no signage about them either. So there you go, it's some ruins without any historical context. Atlanta. So we've worked our way from the parking lot all the way up and through the windy forests and mountains, and we've gotten here. Don't stop here. Go the last leg. Just like this little tick. I introduce to you the jewel of the East Palisades Trail. Worth the effort, the bamboo forest makes me miss my wife Molly because she loves plants and horticulture, and she'll probably tell me all about how invasive bamboo is and where it came from and how it got here. Miss you, Molly.
There's a lot of rock out here. I think it's granite, but probably that's not quite right. I'm sure a geologist person would correct me. Either way, there's a lot of rock out here. I like it when I don't see many people walking around. For some reason, I like solitude a lot of the time, with a few parties mixed in between. I like to stop and look for things out here. I like the plants that grow in a harsh climate. I heard a fly go by my ear. The yucca is blooming, a white soft bloom on a harsh, hard plant. Fibrous. This flowering plant right here is called wart lily. W-O-R-T, not W-A-R-T. Nobody wants a wart lily. This is wart lily. Get it straight. fresh as a wart.
So here we are at our second and my last stop on our nature tour of hidden gems in Atlanta. We are here at Brownwood Park, which is, it is like a oasis type situation, because when you're driving by, if any of you have driven by Brownwood Park, like, you're not seeing how deep it goes back actually, that the trail back here is pretty long. There's also lots of mosquitoes and stuff out here. So I'm gonna go, but this has been a wonderful opportunity for you to get a little nature while social distancing. I want you to enjoy that. I'm gonna enjoy nature inside my home through the window. That's also social distancing. See y'all soon.
I come to you now glowing from the overlook pavilion that is watching over the Chattahoochee. By far one of the most beautiful views in the city limits. Wow, this is Atlanta, y'all. Whew. And right here we see a mother duck with her little ducklings. Mighty cute. Mighty cute. You know, most people say just leave only your footprints, but I say if you leave only one thing behind in a nature place, let it be a couple of chairs. Thus concludes a sporadic nature tour by William Massey in the East Palisades Whitewater Creek Trail. The only thing I wish I could have showed you, two things. There's a beautiful waterfall in the middle of the trail that I didn't get to, as well as a bunch of rocks that when the river water is low, it's really fun to walk across them and hop from rock to rock, and in the summer just lay out and bake and sit in the middle of the river. But that's for you to do on your own. So some geese making noise. So I guess they're saying, quit babbling, William, it's getting dark. Love you, Creative Mornings. Bye.
I've been looking all day and I hadn't found the dog yet. Trying to find a dog. Anybody seen a dog? Find a dog? Doggone.
Good morning, Creative Mornings. We're so glad that you are here and that you've decided to join us. Welcome to our third virtual event. We're so glad that you are here and that you've decided to choose this of all online webinar type things to watch. There's been so many lately, and so we're glad that you're here. You know, we have been doing this type of event for 8.5 years almost, and we were not gonna let a global pandemic slow us down. No, people said we couldn't do this live, but we said, yes, yes we can. And so we are here, and we have the same mission that we've always had, which is just to gather the creative community and to add a little inspiration to all of our lives. So that's my hope for you today watching. I hope that you are able to get a little inspiration, maybe feel a little bit connected even though we're more isolated than ever. And I hope that you just get some joy out of today's event. And you know, this is a morning event and you're at home. You are in your living room probably, maybe in your PJs or soft clothes as I like to call them. And you might need a little bit more pep in your step. So we still got you. We've got some coffee for you, and maybe you've already gone out to get some coffee at some of our participating locations, but we want to remind you before we dive into today to go out and get that free cup of coffee. You have until noon. All you have to do is tell our participating locations that you're with Creative Mornings, and they put it on our tab. So on screen now, you should be able to see which coffee shops we've partnered with. Go get a cup of coffee. If you haven't already, be sure to do that. And if you need a little bit more help waking up, maybe you already have your coffee, we have a very special way to kick off our program today. We have the musical delights of a gentleman named Sam Birchfield, who was perfect for our nature theme today. He was born in South Carolina, the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. He's based in Atlanta now. So in the little chat box here, give some warm claps and a round of applause for Mr. Sam Birchfield.
I hear your applause, thank you. Thank you for having me, it's an honor to be here. This is a song called Blue Ridge June.
Appalachian woman on my mind. Pick your flowers, show me where to find my song. Show me where to find daffodils. Remind me of your name. Heard you laugh in April like the rain coming down. April like the rain. And when I go, remember me. When I come home, kiss me sweet. Quietly, angels sleep in apple trees, dreaming of the melodies I will write for you. Blue Ridge June. Will carve my heart in Carolina pine. Summer love like blackberry vines, oh mine. But I never call you mine. A barefoot lady running next to me. You're so wild, like water in the creek, running round like water running free. And when I go, remember me. When I come home, kiss me sweet. Quietly, angels sleep in apple trees, dreaming of the melodies I will write for you. Oh, evergreen, June.
All right, I got one more for you here. And this is another song. It's called Waking Up, so I hope you are waking up right now. But this is sort of a song about waking up to nature and to all that is around us. Sometimes we forget to get up early and see the sun, or stay up late and see the stars. So.
Take a little time to watch the sunrise. Maybe we can find answers that we've all been looking for. Nothing ever felt so right. Sleeping on leaves tonight. Push me in the river. Life's on the other side. Carried by the water, I'll never be the same. Hear a Ryan calling out my name. Mother Nature's daughter, hiding in the clay. Lay me down and wash my soul away. Oh, I'm waking up. Ooh, where am I from? I'm waking up. Ooh, bury my bones. Take a little time to watch the night sky. Maybe we can find answers in the moonlit lullabies. Never heard a sound so sweet, whispered on the breeze. Wash me in the river, wash me clean. Carried by the water, I'll never be the same. Hear a Ryan calling out my name, my name. Mother Nature's daughter, hiding in the clay. Lay me down and wash my soul away. Oh, I'm waking up. Ooh, where am I from? I'm waking up. Ooh, bury my bones. Carried by the water, I'll never be the same. Hear a Ryan calling out my name. Mother Nature's daughter, hiding in the clay. Lay me down and wash my soul away. Oh, I'm waking up. Ooh, where am I from? I'm waking up. Ooh, bury my bones.
All right, thank you, Sam. That was amazing. That was so good. Thank you. Be sure to go check out Sam Birchfield, more of his music, Spotify, wherever you get your music, and go to his Patreon page to support him, especially if you enjoyed that performance. If you like his music, you can go to patreon.com/Sam Sam Birchfield. You could support him monthly if you want. You can also just click Become a Patron and give him kind of a one-time gift for a little tip for performing today. That would be a kind thing to do. You know, the pandemic has affected so many people, especially those that perform live. So throw him a little tip. That would be awesome. We appreciate it. Thanks so much again, Sam, for being here. Also, I want to thank our full Atlanta team who pulls this off every month. I'm the guy that gets to stand up here sometimes and get the credit, but I do very little compared to the rest of the team. And I want to just give them a shout out. So at home, wherever you are, take a minute, look into the eyes of all of those little circles there on screen and think about them. Think about all the work that they do. Think about Amina, Andrew, Molly, Malik, Rachel, Stephanie, and think in your mind and then in your heart and say thank you. Thank you, Atlanta team. And also, I want to continue with the thank yous and thank Friendly Human, where we are here in this beautiful studio where Sam was just playing right next to me, where I'm set up now. We are at Friendly Human Studio, and they're basically part of the Atlanta team. With us having to film live, they have been clutch partners for us in doing so much to pull this off, and I'm so grateful. And they have a new product I wanted to tell you about, a new offering. It's called VidLoft. So you can Google Vid, V-I-D-L-O-F-T, and we'll drop that into the chat bar below, VidLoft. And it's really for content creators who don't love the content production side. You know, sometimes it is expensive, it is difficult to break out the right gear, to film, to record, to edit, to post is a very challenging process. And they found a way to solve that. It's 10 times cheaper, 10 times faster. They send you a cool kit with all the gear that you need. You film it, you record it, you send the files to them, they edit it in less than 48 hours and get it back to you. It's a pretty sweet deal. So be sure to check out VidLoft. And once again, thank you to Nick and Justin right over here who have been so helpful with Friendly Human. Also, I want to thank Jenny Wentling for this beautiful set here that is behind me. This is not fabricated. This is not some virtual backdrop on Zoom. This is real. Like, I can touch these things. See it moves, it touch. There's not a weird halo around my head. It's real, it's there. Jenny came in and built this yesterday. We put out a call asking if there were any set designers that would want to come and help. She volunteered and she created this beautiful thing just for today's program. So we're so thankful for Jenny. Appreciate you. And everyone go check her out. JennyWentling.com. I think you can see her work. She's an artist and set designer, so thank you. I want to keep rolling with some of the thank yous. I want to thank Matchstick. They're a branding firm here in town. That's where I work. That's where Malik, Molly, and Andrew work. It's part of our jobs to bring this event to life each month, which is really unique and really cool. So if you are looking to clarify your message or you need to stand out in the market, be sure to check out Matchstick. That's just matchstic.com. We'll drop that link in the chat below as well. Big shout out to them. And since we're on partners that begin with an M, the next one is MailChimp that I want to roll to. They have been a local partner of ours from the beginning, so 8.5 years. And they have provided the food and coffee at every single Creative Mornings event since then. And they not only partner with us locally, they also partner with us globally and help the growth throughout all the world with Creative Mornings. So, you know, if you use anyone else for your marketing, automation, email, shame on you. Shame on you. You should shame yourself right now. They don't like when I shame you, but I can shame you. See, they're better than that. They have higher standards than I do. So I shame you, and you should just choose MailChimp because they're the best. We very much appreciate them. And they're offering a free 3-month period to use their standard plan, which is very gracious of them. So if you want to use their standard plan, you can get 3 months for free. We'll drop a link with more info in the chat below so you can be sure to check that out. That applies also for existing customers. So if you already are awesome and use MailChimp, you can just add 3 months for free onto that. It does expire May 31st, which is in a few days, so be sure to get on that. Okay, so if you are doing social media today, be sure to tag any of your posts Atlanta_CM to make sure we can kind of just all track along and see what everyone's posting. And then also you can do CM Nature, which is kind of the global tag for the month, which is cool to post things with that. click on it and see what's happening all over the world with chapters just like our Atlanta one. You can also follow us, Atlanta_CM. That's our Instagram feed. It's a good way to get information about our chapter. And then also go to CreativeMornings.com, click on Atlanta, and join our newsletter. We typically send out 2 a month to just announce the event and save the date, and then a reminder to register. So be sure to do that. It's a good way just to get more information about upcoming Creative Mornings stuff. And speaking of social media, I want to give another shout out to a partner of ours, C-Spark Go. They provide, or they run our Instagram and Twitter accounts. They do our social media, and we are so thankful to have their expertise. So if you need digital marketing, PR help right now, be sure to go check out C-Spark Go. Thank you so much. And this month we're talking about nature, as we've already alluded to, and I love this theme and this topic. You know, now more than ever, nature has been a chance for us to refresh and to go outside and feel human again and to get just recharged in new ways. For me as a creative, nature has always played a huge role in that. I feel at peace and at my best when I sit next to a river. There's something about a moving river that I love. A lake, an ocean, any body of water will do. As long as there's green stuff around, I'm in a happy place. And so I love this theme of nature, and I'm excited to hear from Hannah today more on that. This month's theme, nature, is kind of ironically maybe brought to you by WordPress, digital platform for websites, which is a little bit opposite of nature, but they probably love nature just like you do. So just because they help you build websites doesn't mean they don't like the outdoors. I'm sure they love the outdoors. But we're very thankful for WordPress being our web publishing partner on a global level. They have some free webinars for you, so if you are not webinared out and you were just looking like, yes, give me more webinars, I need more of that, they have a free one every day for 30 minutes that will help you build a website or transition your business to online. So be sure to check that out. There's some really great resources there for you. We'll again drop a link to that in the chat. Okay, last shout out partner, but not least, Basecamp. This is a project management platform software that you need. If you are a creative, you probably need some guardrails. You probably need a little organizing. Basecamp has got you, so be sure to check them out if you need a good project management solution. They're also, as a company, sort of known for working remote. They had a book called Rework several years ago that the founders wrote that was really influential in the way I think about office dynamics and team cultures. And they just released this internal communication guide just for Creative Mornings folks to kind of go and read and see behind the scenes of how they keep good communication while working remote that we thought you might enjoy and like. So we'll drop a link to that again in the chat so you can go and peruse at your leisure. But big shout out to Basecamp. Thank you for sponsoring and partnering with us on a global level. Okay, 2 more things. Next month, I'm really excited for John O to speak. I call him John O. A lot of people call him John O. The theme is insecure, which is a coincidence because I feel insecure saying his last name fully, and I don't want to completely butcher it. So John O will work. Come out, see John O. We will be virtual. We will be live streaming again next month. So that's going to be June 26th. Let me tell you a little bit about John O. He started a company called Portrait Coffee, and he's telling sort of this larger story with coffee around social justice and how there are not many at the end of the production line that really reap the benefit of the margins of something like coffee that are people of color. So he wanted to create a brand that was owned, run, and operated by people of color that is Portrait Coffee. So go check out portrait.coffee. Get excited for John O to speak next month. It's going to be awesome. Okay, now let me introduce Hannah. And before I do, I want to give a big shout out to the social arts mayor of Atlanta. You know who I'm talking about, Terry Kearns, TK. Thank you for the tip to have Hannah come speak. Thank you, I appreciate it. Let me read Hannah's bio here. She's a writer and urban designer, obsessed with her hometown of Atlanta. I'm glad that she is. We are a little bit too. Her award-winning book, Flight Path, A Search for Roots Beneath the World's Busiest Airport, was published in 2017. Part memoir, part cultural history of the New South, Booklist called it a passionate and gorgeously written reminder of why urban planning matters. Hannah works as a designer and community organizer on urban conservation projects, and for the last 2 years, she's led Finding the Flint, a campaign to reveal and restore the lost headwaters of Georgia's endangered Flint River. She teaches writing at the Decatur Writers Studio and has published essays in Atlanta Magazine, CNN.com, art papers in Atlanta Studies. So everyone give a warm round of applause in the chat for Hannah Palmer.
Thank you, Blake. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here today. I am excited to just be out of the house, honestly, and I don't think I've heard live music since February, and that just really was good for my soul, so thank you, Sam. Thank you, Terry Kearns, for the tip and the invitation to be here today. I'm Hannah Palmer, and I have to start by confessing that I am not a scientist or a biologist, so this talk about nature is not going to be a science lesson. And Blake just mentioned that when he's out in nature, he feels calm and at peace. And I have to confess that I'm really not like a bona fide tree hugger. When I'm in the woods, and I'm in the woods a lot, I'm mostly thinking about ticks and poison ivy. And so I don't always feel at peace in nature. I just wanted to tell y'all that up front because you may relate to that too. What I am, though, is a writer and an urban designer. And in that work, it's become really important for me to understand the natural world. And I've found a new sense of urgency around trying to describe what I see as an artist. But I'm also a mother. And so I'm going to talk about those three lenses today as why I'm interested in nature. It's really through those jobs of mine. I'm particularly going to be talking about nature as it exists in cities. So not parks, not some remote, pristine location, but I'm interested in how nature shows up in the urban landscape. Am I supposed to be on that slide? I think so. So the pictures that you see in my slideshow, I took most of them with an iPhone in Atlanta, and a lot of them in the airport area on the south side. So come with me on a trip to see some nature, and I'm really excited to share with you a lot about the airport area. As Blake mentioned, I wrote a book called Flight Path, and in the process of writing that book, I learned a lot about what's underneath the airport, and we're going to talk about the Flint River. But before we get down there, I just wanted to start here, where we are, to give you a little insight about how my mind works and how I do my work as a researcher, a historian, and a writer. So this is being live streamed on the web. I don't know where you are right now, but there's 5 of us here in a studio in the old 4th Ward, so I just want to start here. And I have to acknowledge, starting off, that only 200 years ago, this was Muskogee land. And that history informs the shape of the city that we live in now. And if you look at a satellite image of the old 4th Ward, you can still see traces of nature. And I'm always interested in clues that tell us where we are. So just in the satellite, you can see some detention ponds. You can see railroad tracks, and railroad tracks are often built on the high ridge lines. The railroad tracks in this shot are actually along the subcontinental divide. So we're in the Chattahoochee River watershed. I love digging up historic maps. I love peeling back the layers of asphalt and of human development. It's only 100 years ago, the area was a lot more sort of suburban. It was changing, and you can see more clearly in an old map where the creases are, where the water goes. You can see where Clear Creek begins and where it flows north through Piedmont Park up to Peachtree Creek to the Chattahoochee River and then down to the Gulf of Mexico. So I'm always interested in what's underneath the surface because it starts to inform us about how humans have organized themselves on the land, and how a place works, and also how a place's decline. So that's part of my work as an urban designer. It's something I'm always interested in, and I love that Eudora Welty, the great Mississippi writer, once said that our awareness of place is always informing us, and if you can understand one place well, you can comprehend other places better. So that's why I just wanted to start here. But now let's head down to the south side. I want to tell you a little bit about how I started into this path of writing about nature. I always wanted to be a writer, and I realized from creative writing workshops that the best writing gets really specific. And if you want vivid writing, it goes for any art form, you got to get specific about a place or the thing you're describing. So I believe I'm talking to a large audience of artists, and you guys understand that our role is to be observers, to always be noticing and naming the things we see, the things that other people just pass by. And this tree is one of those things I pass by almost every day when I run. And finally, I just had to stop and get a picture because that's so poetic. I was thinking about this little tree winning its battle, this slow battle against a steel post. And I wanted to write it down in my pandemic journal, as you do. And I realized I had to call a friend to figure out what kind of tree that was. It's a pecan tree. And I had to go back and I was trying to describe the way that after a rain, those little fuzzy tassels that fall off the tree, how they just turn the road into like a shag carpet. And I realized I didn't even know what those things were called, those fuzzy little things. They're called catkins. So here I just wanted to journal about something I saw on the side of the road in East Point, Georgia. And suddenly I'm having to dig into natural research to learn about how pecan trees go and grow and how long they live. And this is how I have kind of become a nature writer. It wasn't through a love of science or even a love of nature. In fact, I grew up in Clayton County, Georgia, in a landscape that was really what you would call suburban sprawl. And I had no sense that where I lived was connected to the natural world. So I love nature. I was a little environmentalist, but I wanted to save the rainforest. Or, I felt like I could connect with nature up in the mountains of North Carolina or down in the marshes on the coast. But where I lived in suburban, south side Atlanta, I just didn't think there was any nature, which is ironic because, you see places like Flint River Village. I had never actually seen the Flint River. Atlanta is full of places like this that are named after creeks and rivers, roads that reference ferries and bridges and mills, and yet the rivers and creeks that formed our cities are just totally invisible in the landscape. The result of that is that I kind of grew up feeling like I was from nowhere, and that the place that I was from wasn't worth very much. Like real places, real cities have rivers or mountains or cool natural features, and I just kind of thought Atlanta was nowhere, so I was eager to leave. So fast forward a dozen years, I went to college, lived in New York, traveled, saw real places. Eventually, I came back home to Atlanta, and I was so enamored with how green the city is. I mean, whenever you travel to New York or other dense cities, you come back to Atlanta, it's not just the tree canopy that is just so amazing and green. There's also these vast areas of undeveloped land that I was fascinated with. In this image, I'm with some friends, and we're biking around this overgrown wilderness on the edge of the airport. Now, in my book, I get into a whole story there. We learned that there's all these neighborhoods in College Park and Riverdale and Mountain View, where I'm from, that were bought out by the airport, and the houses were relocated, and what's left is an overgrown, ghost town. So what I first experienced as this wilderness that I wanted to explore, I gradually learned was, in fact, a deeply degraded landscape and the remains of a displaced community. In my work as an urban designer, I've been able to work on a number of kind of similar urban conservation projects, increasingly around restoring rivers and creeks in metro Atlanta. This is another example of a really beautiful meadow that's inside of 200 acres inside the perimeter that's been preserved because it's next to a landfill. And what I've been learning is that there's a pattern here, that these green spaces inside the city, they're not pristine, they're not protected, they're there because they can't be developed. Green spaces often serve an important function in cities, that they absorb the runoff, the floodwaters, the contamination, and in fact, in the airport area, they're absorbing the noise pollution of what the neighbors upstream are building. And part of that pattern is often that communities who live in these areas bear the environmental impacts of what's happening upstream. And for every green space in Atlanta like this, there's a story of a community that was cut off or pushed out, or even worse, were segregated and trapped in areas that were going to deal with bad environmental impacts from upstream. So that's been a process of me learning about urban wilderness and actually starting to view these green spaces as highly engineered, not natural at all, but man-made. And that brings us down to the airport area. This is a scene of, this is Sullivan Creek. It's emerging from a culvert underneath the 5th runway. So I grew up near the Atlanta airport, and if you've been there, I imagine you've experienced the scale of the Atlanta airport. It's 4,700 acres. That means it's actually bigger than downtown Atlanta. And it's an entirely man-made, highly engineered landscape. So when I was working on the book Flight Path, I read that there was a creek and part of the Flint River were somewhere underneath the runways, but I didn't know where, I didn't know where they began or how they were connected or why that mattered. In 2017, I got started on a project for 2 conservation groups, the Conservation Fund and American Rivers and the ARC, who were looking for ways to change that narrative, the lost river under the airport. What can we do to help restore the headwaters and actually bring sustainable development to the south side? It's kind of like a dream project for me, but it was an education as well, and working on that project over the last couple of years has changed my life for sure. I went from being somebody who didn't realize there was very much nature in my backyard to feeling like we have incredible assets that are just hidden and in a cage. This image is a small strip of the Flint River, and it's right next to Delta's World Headquarters. This is the last place where you can see the daylighted creek before it enters a massive culvert that goes underneath the airport for 1.5 miles. So you would never stop and see this. There's not a sign that says, Georgia's 2nd longest river starts here. You would just drive by it, and I certainly drove by it for many, many years until the folks from American Rivers took me out and showed me that this indeed was the headwaters of an important river. This is my son, Guy. He's 9 years old. He is helping show you where the Flint River is on a map of the airport. And again, if you weren't a historian or a hydrologist or maybe a Southside native, you wouldn't know where the Flint River was. And certainly people that I speak to in Atlanta, mostly they don't know where the Flint River is. And they think of it as maybe down in Albany, Georgia, where it made national news when it flooded in the 90s. So we started calling the project Finding the Flint right from the beginning because it became like a treasure hunt. And we started talking about where the river headwaters sort of intersect with development around the airport that we could do differently in the future. So I want to say right off that we're partners with the airport, and there are lots of people at the airport are very supportive of Finding the Flint, but we're not trying to daylight the river underneath the runways. That would not work. What we are looking at is all the places around the airport on the edges where we could develop differently. Here's an example. This is in Hapeville, and the river's in a large pipe under a parking lot. So we get folks out. I take people on tours, and these folks in this picture, I see the mayor of College Park, some Stockbridge residents, a professor, some Delta employees, and we go and we visit all these sites where the headwaters are kind of hidden and degraded, and we talk about the possibilities for either daylighting and restoring the creek, or just bringing awareness and developing in a way that's sustainable. It takes some imagination for sure. When you are looking down a storm drain and I'm telling you, that's a river, really, it's a river. You have to kind of make a leap of faith because it hasn't been named a river in a long time. It's been kind of treated like a sewage ditch or drainage ditch, and then it doesn't get the respect that a river deserves. But if I could take you inside the fence, and I've been lucky to visit this site a couple times inside the fence, you would definitely see that this is the Flint River. This is a spot where it's behind the security boundary of the airport, and it's like a nature preserve back there. I've been back with some airport employees a couple times, and you just see tracks of deer, coyote, you see beaver dams. We've even seen the tracks of a bobcat in there. So I'm here to tell you that there's a bobcat inside the airport. And when you start realizing how alive the river is, that's when you really get excited. This is the spot just on the south side of the airport, the first place where it really starts to look and feel like a river, and where the public, you could pull over on the side of Forest Parkway's bridge and use your imagination and picture parks and trails. So we've created a lot of renderings and maps. In my typical Finding the Flint presentation, we do lots of before and after shots. But I just wanted to show you this is what the river looks like today, and we're trying to imagine a future where there's parks and trails and access to the river again. Because if people can't even see it, then they don't care about it, and they don't care about what happens to all the communities downstream that rely on the river. So sometimes I'm feeling very inspired by the Flint River and all the possibilities, and we're going to save the river. And I have to say that it's become, for me, as a Clayton County native and as somebody who lives in the airport area now, definitely sort of metaphor for community resilience. When you see how we've put this river in a cage, and we've really tried to constrain it for decades, and it's still flowing freely, it makes me feel a sense of pride. This is a symbol of my homeland. Other times, I realize that the river is eternal as gravity. It's just always going to be there, and what we're working to protect is not the river itself, but the people who live along the river and who rely on the river. I had to admit that I had become a total river nerd when I started running out in rainstorms to get footage of these ditches in East Point that are at the headwaters. And when you see them surging, it's impressive, and you got to respect that that river is going to outlast me and you and the airport and everything else that we've built. The river doesn't need us. We need the river. So I bring it back to my kids again, and why I'm doing this and why I love talking about it. They have found the Flint. They found it 30 years before I found it, despite growing up in the same environment. And I get excited about a future where they can see it and enjoy it and identify with it, that take pride that there is a river in their neighborhood, that it matters. And we have a choice about the way we develop these places, whether we treat green space in the city as a dumping ground, as a place that just needs to absorb runoff and pollution, or whether we treat them as something protected and precious that is part of our community and that's benefiting our quality of life. I'm surrounded by experts all the time, folks who are experts on turtles and hydrology and infrastructure. And I think what I'm an expert in is how do we create human habitat? That's what I'm interested in. And I'll just, on this last slide, I wanted to say that during the pandemic, we were kind of stuck in East Point. We're not traveling a lot. We're staying close to home. And we've spent a lot of time, because the parks have been closed in our neighborhood, we've just been riding bikes in parking lots. We've been exploring the little edges and the cemeteries and any green space we can find. And it's been a really special time. I know my kids are getting tired of me talking about the Flint River, but I think they are starting to understand that even the weedy, kind of crusty edges of the parking lot, there's a creek back there in the woods. There's a reason why the parking lot has got this curvy shape to it, because the water's running back there. So I hope that they understand that the place where they are growing up, it really matters. And the people that live there, they matter too. And I hope they'll be part of helping design a future that they can be proud of and that's healthier for everybody who lives there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Hannah. We've got some questions now, and I actually have one that I want to kick off with. What can people do to get involved? Like how can they hear this, learn about the Flint, understand it's there, and then what's something they could do?
Well, if you want to learn more about Finding the Flint, it's findingtheflint.org, and you can sign up for updates. You can follow us on social media. The two organizations, the two nonprofits that have made the project possible are the Conservation Fund and American Rivers. You can certainly donate to those two nonprofit organizations. You could also support the Flint River Keeper. Typically my answer to the question about how do you get involved is come with me on a tour of the headwaters. Join us to do some water quality monitoring. And unfortunately, all kinds of group gatherings are just on hold for now. So the best way to get involved would be to kind of follow us on Facebook or Instagram. We're starting to do more projects where you can go out with your household or your family to adopt a drain, to do water quality monitoring in the creeks near you, and to virtually explore the headwaters on your own. Unfortunately, I can't take you on a tour. But there's lots of different ways to get involved that you can do just with your household, and the best way to find that is through the website.
Okay, I've got another question. I'm just going to pop in and out like this.
Okay.
Like Clippy on Word. Remember Clippy?
Yes.
Hopefully not as annoying as
Sorry,
Clippy.
you asked for it.
Bing! I have a suggestion. Get away, Clippy, stop that. Okay, Michelle Hiskey says, your book is so well written and keenly observed. That's kind, Michelle. What did you learn in the editing process that informs your writing today?
Well, thank you for that comment. And I am writing about water now. The work on the Flint River and the South River and other urban conservation projects has got me really focused on water and the landscape. And I'm working on another book right now that's about kind of lost southern waters, particularly as my kids have been learning how to swim. I worked with some fantastic editors at Hub City Press who really embraced what I was trying to do with my work, which involves both memoir and research. So there's an historical investigation into my life and into a place. They encouraged more of that. I didn't feel like they tried to steer me toward one side of my brain or the other. So I learned in the editing process that a great editor understands what you're trying to do and is drawing out more. I added several chapters to Flight Path during the editing process to balance out for the audience. I think I had been writing really for an Atlanta audience. They wanted me to write for a national audience. So I had to zoom out a bit and talk more about what the Atlanta airport means globally. So I tend to stick very specific in my writing, just stick to what I know, the places I know. And I think the good editors at Hub City Press helped me really touch into universal themes about exile, place, and home.
Okay, another question from Paul Runco asks, what's the history of the Flint River name?
Okay, what I understand about the Flint River name is that the Muskogee peoples who lived along the river actually gathered flint on the banks of the river, and the Muskogee term was Thronatiska. And that the white folks, when they arrived, they kept the same name translated to English. I've never found flint along the river, and I have to say there's Flint rivers in Alabama, in Michigan, of course. Georgia's Flint River is our second longest river, starting in East Point, going all the way to Florida. So there's the history of the entire state is wound up in the history of the Flint River. But Thronatiska is the original name.
Man, dropping some Muskogee. Which Alan Bell asks, any favorite quick insights of Muskogee life around the Atlanta area?
We know so little, but what I have learned, I learned at the Ocmulgee National, I think it's a national monument, national park that's down in Macon, close to the capital of Muskogee territory. So what you learn, I also learned some of this in Georgia history in like second grade, that, you know, a lot of the same footpaths that the Native peoples used are now our main roads. that they settled along the banks of the rivers the same way that we eventually built our grist mills. But I don't want to, I'm not no expert on the Muskogee peoples. I would say go down as soon as they're open. They might be open now. Go down to Macon and visit the National Monument there, and you'll get to go inside of the earth mounds, see how those peoples lived, and give you some insight on how they lived here in the Atlanta area before white settlers.
And I've heard that they decided to take their biggest footpaths, like the most well-trafficked, and then make them converge right through their city center also. Mm-hmm. And what's the Muskogee word for connector?
I don't know.
Just kidding. I don't know anything about that. I was trying to be funny about how poorly designed the connector is in the city.
Got it.
Yeah, sorry. You were like, where are you going with
well,
this?
I thought maybe I should know that word.
Okay, Brandy Gunn asks, this is switching subjects a little bit, how do we control the sources of pollution and runoff? How do we make these less damaging overall?
Great question. The short answer is green infrastructure. So gray infrastructure is big concrete pipes that carry stormwater runoff and dump it directly into our creeks and rivers. Green infrastructure looks more like green areas, planted areas, grassy strips, parks, buffers along the edges of the creek so that when runoff being stormwater, hits a parking lot and carries all the nasty stuff on the surface of the city into the watershed, instead of it hitting directly into the creeks and rivers, it has a chance to kind of infiltrate into the ground, filter through grasses and plantings, and eventually it joins the creeks and rivers, but it's not so potent, and there's been some time to slow it down. In Atlanta and in the case of the Flint River, there's not one giant polluter that's sitting at the headwaters, and the airport included. Nobody is like directly dumping pollution into the headwaters of the Flint River. It's 1,000 tiny cuts. It's all the little church parking lots and businesses and the roadways that when we get these kind of like quick, violent summer storms here in Atlanta, just flush contamination straight into the creek as quickly as possible. So a lot of the Finding the Flint work is about giving the creeks some space, giving them a little green breathing room so that they can flood if they need to, and also they can capture and sort of infiltrate all of that stormwater before it rushes into the river and affects our, the wildlife and eventually our drinking water.
Okay, Amanda G asks, why are drainage ponds so awful? Which I've wondered that before. Is there a way to control runoff more naturally rather than these fenced off mosquito ponds?
I know, I'm often like stopping, this is the kind of nerd I am now, stopping to look at drainage ponds that they've just kind of like planted cedars around, and you peek through the barbed wire fence and it's like, a death pit. It's just full of trash, and I hate them too. They're required. I mean, before we had rules about stormwater management, big developers would just build buildings and whatever happened downstream was somebody else's problem. So detention and retention ponds, they're a good step towards asking property owners to take responsibility for all the paved surfaces. Now, there's a lot of solutions under the umbrella of green infrastructure to try to do that better, besides just building a detention pond, which is really a waste of space if you think about it. If you own land, you don't want to devote a quarter of it to a nasty pond that nobody likes or enjoys. One way to manage that is through pervious surfaces. So instead of like asphalt that's impervious, gravel or different kinds of surfaces that actually can capture some storm water as it falls, instead of like, again, shuttling it quickly into a pond. Green roofs. I mean, there's a long list of sort of design ideas that work, and bioswales. It's all about like a greener version of the gray and hard surfaces that we typically put around buildings. And the benefits are not only do we get cleaner water and a more beautiful landscape, but then you also have pollinators that want to come in. You have space for bees and butterflies. And personally, I would much rather be surrounded by a greener and growing and living environment than the gray one that we're so used to.
All right, Carla Preston asks, how has the recent development of the Beltline and projects like it played into saving and acknowledging our creeks and rivers?
I have to say, you might have seen a cameo in my slides that Ryan Gravel I've worked with him for many years on these projects, and he was part of the original vision for Finding the Flint. So the Beltline has kind of proven to communities all over Atlanta that people want parks and trails. They want safe places to bike, and they will choose to get out of their cars and move around on public trails in places that you wouldn't even expect it, places that I'm standing next to the Beltline right now in a former industrial area that in my parents' age would have been considered contaminated, unsafe, and here it is, like the thriving heart of Atlanta. So it's not just proven that people want trails in beautiful areas, but former industrial areas can have a second life as connected community centers. And I think definitely when the ARC started the whole Flint River visioning process and invited Ryan Gravel to be part of it, there was the idea that like we could bring some of that Beltline energy to the south side, that the Flint River itself can be that connecting corridor that it originally was. I mean, 200 years ago, 100 years ago, it was the connecting tissue for the community. So there's definitely that sense of like bringing back the river as a centerpiece, not just something in the back door that you dump stuff in, but it's actually the front door. We're going to turn and embrace it as part of development.
Okay, Megan Domebeck says she lives in Kirkwood. Shout out to Kirkwood. I live there too. Great community. With a creek running behind her house. Hey, are we neighbors? I have a creek behind my house. What can she or I do to help the creek be healthy?
Do you know the name of the creek? There's step one.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
Peachtree something.
Maybe. I think Kirkwood might be like Sugar Creek or maybe. So that's what I put you on the spot. I put him on the spot.
Megan, do you know it? Don't comment. Help me. Phone a friend.
Yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I think that's pretty common in Atlanta is that we have a sense there's some creeks back there, but they're not safe often to visit, and they take on a lot of pollution and runoff, so you're not going to take your kids back there to play in those creeks, so we've lost connection to them. I would say, yeah, learn the names of your creeks and your watershed and try to reestablish the connection that way. I believe Kirkwood is in the South River watershed, and you could support the South River Watershed Alliance, which is a organization, a nonprofit that is fighting for the water quality of the South River. That they're fighting for your neighborhood, in fact, if I'm getting the watershed right. So I think, yeah, once you start to wade into all the environmental organizations that are out there doing the work, you can certainly make donations, but there's also a program from the EPD called Georgia Adopt a Stream. And that's if you want to get trained to go out and collect samples and test the water quality. So, I mean, throughout the course of a day, what's in the water is changing. After a heavy rainstorm, there might be pollution or even sewage spills. But that data needs to be collected in an ongoing way by people who live there. So Georgia Adopt a Stream is a way to really get into the science of what's in the creek and help follow up with policy to protect water quality. Cleanups. I mean, we're in this time of pandemic where we're stuck at home, and if you're out on a hike, if you can safely gather litter, that does make a difference. I mean, otherwise it's just getting washed down to the next community to deal with. So again, safely wear some PPE, but you could certainly gather litter and talk to your neighbors about, what's happening in that creek.
Okay, last question. I tried to Google it really fast. Rocky Ford Trail is all it said. Rocky Ford Creek Trail, because there's a little trail right there off Rocky Ford. So even Google Maps doesn't know its name.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Rocky
Sam
Ford
confirmed,
Creek.
Rocky Ford Creek.
River watershed, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go, Rocky Ford Creek.
Y'all, and I have to say that, no one is an expert. Some of these creeks don't even have names. That's something you could do as a neighborhood is name that creek. It's funny you mentioned Rocky Ford. In my book, like one of the first chapters is I was living in that area, and there was a spring behind my house that didn't have a name, and I kind of wrote about that, so deja vu. Yeah, a lot of Atlanta's little creeks and tributaries don't have an identity. Make t-shirts, represent your creek.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. Let's see. We're going to go with Louis Crumbly. Louis Crumbly asks, do you have a new project in the works? And P.S., the Palmer family rules.
Well, thank you, Louis Crumbly. I do have a new project in the works, and I'm really excited to go up to the Hanbridge Center next week and spend some time on the manuscript I've been working on for a couple years. That's I mentioned it's about lost southern waters. Particularly in the last couple years, I've been teaching my kids how to swim and discovering that there's no place for them to swim. East Point doesn't have a swimming pool for reasons that are long and complicated and get deep into the racial politics of public spaces. So I've been doing a lot of research on the history of swimming in the South. The book follows their process of learning how to swim. We spent one summer where we went to every public pool in Atlanta, and that was a blast, and I'm really hating it that right now the pools should be open and we should be exploring, and we're just in an inflatable pool in the backyard. So it's about learning to swim, learning how to be in public spaces, and really the climate crisis that we are losing the last natural places where we once could learn to swim. I hope I'll wrap up that manuscript this year. Right now I'm calling it the Bottomland Diaries, but a good editor will probably change that for me. So stay tuned. Hopefully it'll be coming up soon.
Okay, Hannah, thank you. That was awesome. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate you being here. And I did want to give one more shout out to Amina Brown, Kyle Brooks, and William Massey for their nature hikes at the beginning. If you missed that sort of pre-roll footage, we'll probably put it on social media at some point, but it was a lot of fun, and we appreciate their efforts kind of taking us on some hidden hikes throughout Atlanta. So Hannah, thanks again, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see everyone in June. Do we wave? Is that what we do?